Hey, good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here from Latin America and from around the world. It's a great pleasure to welcome you in this event, Advancing the Prevention of Corruption through Partnerships and Synergies in Public Procurement. This is organized in the corruption event of the General Assembly. I'm Eduardo Jaramillo, and I work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mexico. I'm going to be moderating today's event. We organized it, as you know, together with the government of Mexico, Argentina, and UNOPS. The objective of this side event is presenting specific actions and experiences of joint effort in order to prevent and fight corruption through an efficient and transparent public procurement. We will be sharing different experiences on how good practices have been implemented in a fair public management. In order to express this message, we are broadcasting this event live both in English and Spanish, and all member states of the UN can participate, as well as different UN representatives, the public and private sector, the academia, civil society, communication media, among many other stakeholders. We thank every diplomatic mission in this meeting room, and we also thank all of you who are seeing us live. Today, we have a very high level panel. It is a great honor to welcome Grete Faremo, who is our UNOPS Executive Director and UN Under Secretary General. I also greet Irma Erendira Sandoval, Secretary of Public Administration in Mexico. We have with us Mr. Gabriel Catopodis, Minister of Public Works in Argentina, and very soon, as my colleague Erika was saying, we will have Mr. Marcelo Ebrard, Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Mexico. So let's start by asking Irma Erendira Sandoval to address the audience. She's going to give us a general context of how to prevent corruption. Please go ahead. Don't forget to turn your microphone on. Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Eduardo Jaramillo, for this introduction. Mrs. Grete Faremo, Executive Director of UNOPS and UN Under Secretary General, Mr. Gabriel Catopodis, Secretary of Public Works in Argentina, Mr. Eduardo Jaramillo, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Mexico. We are very honored because we have the chance to participate with you today. It is a great honor to be with you here in today's event, which is organized under this General Assembly's session framework, in which our countries have been able to agree on a very deep and broad political statement, which will foster the clear willingness of states in order to fight corruption and impunity. They have both harmed our societies very much. This problem has been translated into poverty and lack of equality for millions of people around the world. We all know how government capacity has been trying to face public issues. And this has obviously become a very important threat for our political interaction, for our democracies, both in developed and developing countries. This is affecting all countries and their institutions. In Mexico, with the fourth transformation government, in my ministry, we have been building new ideas and we created and understood better corruption. We think that the modernization theory focused on corruption as delay or economics of development, nor the moralist and culturalist conceptions that focus on these topics can help us understand the challenge that we're facing. We know that the economic growth, even economic development in different countries can coexist with many corrupt practices. In other words, economic development or economic growth don't mean that there's no corruption. Unfortunately, corruption can be found in many cultures, both from the north and the south, geopolitical regions, of course. So we truly think it's very important to understand the corruption speech. We need to understand it. We need to understand how deep it is, and we need to understand all challenges. We also need to be very critical when understanding different microorganizational approaches that deal with corruption, and they see corruption just as a matter of organizations. We need to understand regulative matters that only look at regulations and standards. And there are some other perspectives that have to do with political economy. But all these approaches are not enough if they only look at structural matters. All these elements are very important, but we think that the most important thing is focusing on very complex aspects of the state-society relationship or the relationships with the society. That's what we truly need if we want to address institutional challenges. We have tried to deal with this corruption subject by dealing with other complex topics. We need to take corruption into account as a whole and not focusing only on bureaucracy. And we need to leave behind this institutional bias that we had before and that we used to understand or try to understand impunity and corruption challenges. The most serious corruption issues come from very specific economic interests. And on the other hand, this happens because of a political structure which abuses from power or anti-democratic structures. So corruption becomes stronger because of all these practices that exclude important sectors of the society. Unfortunately, many state players end up participating in these anti-democracy and corruption chains, and they end up affecting citizens. This might be because of this anti-democracy works. We have some different structures, but well, we need to understand different interests that we have in different political institutions. In other words, what we want to say is that the most challenging problems of corruption do not come only from the public sector or from the state. Sometimes this comes from the outside. So these areas out of the state itself have been growing and growing as the result of privatizing trends. So, because of that, these public affairs end up being out of control, and that's why corruption is generated. Thus, in Mexico, from our ministry, the Ministry of Public Administration, we have dealt with corruption as a political and institutional aspect. We know we need both political and institutional solutions. That is, broad structural solutions. So, structural corruption is the result of the abuse of power generated decades ago, and it actually remained for decades. It's also a result of the impunity that we have in different power spheres, mainly those that we had for non state areas. That is impunity that we have seen in the market during different moments of time, or maybe this is because of what private stakeholders are doing as well. Thirdly, I want to say that citizens have not been able to raise their voice. For a long period of time, society was against political representatives. So I'm trying to talk about many things here, I know, but colleagues, you might agree that one of the most vulnerable areas before state corruption and structural corruption is public procurement, mainly in emergency times, such as the global time we're all facing nowadays. This COVID 19 times. So, according to some studies, public procurement has represented between 10 and 15%, let's say 15% of a country's richness. And this is the GDP of the country. Other studies from the OECD have said that public procurement represents 57% of bribes around the world. These bribes have even been institutional bribes. Organizations have said that these are valid expenses. And obviously, this is corruption. So, by paying bribes, people can get contracts in the public sector. Some experiences I'd like to share with you today are the following. In Mexico, 20% of the yearly budget is allocated to public procurement. One of the measures that we have implemented in the government has been consolidate and centralize those public procurements. This with a specialized institution. The objective is decreasing prices by volume in contracts, and at the same time, we aim to fight these corruption nodes that I was explaining at the beginning. So, in the country, in my Secretary of Public Administration, we started implementing new platforms. This in order to have access to basic and necessary information from public officers. Our payroll has become completely transparent, and we have offered different platforms in order to simplify the reporting process. We want citizens to be able to report corruption easier. So we have promoted as never before the performance of the private sector. We aim the private sector to work with ethic, the new public ethic that we are building in this new government. So, in my ministry, we have created a business integrity area. There, we have thousands of businessmen enrolled. So now we are doing different processes online. We have issued 393 sanctions, and we have fined companies. They have had to pay millions and millions of pesos. These fines are given to those who have tried to abuse everyone's resources. I would also like to highlight that in Mexico, during this sanitary emergency, we have acted with responsibility and with a clear sense of sovereignty. This is not what happened in the past. Our country did not increase its public debt. It's actually the opposite. We have implemented an austerity policy. So we have an authority led by Mr. López Obrador, which follows the austerity law that we have now. So we have also promoted a real fiscalization because we have aimed to have savings. And because of that, we have been able to have resources in order to get medical devices and vaccines. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, who I greet as well, has been acting very good when getting vaccines from other countries. And he has been participating in all commitments. And this is how Mexico has been facing this pandemic. In the Ministry of Public Administration, we have been working with many colleagues. We have helped the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example. We have supported them so that they can review all public procurement processes. More than 7 billion pesos have been under review. So everything we've done has been done in a very agile way, and everything has been done in real time. So today I wanted to talk about, and we all want to talk about different experiences and joint actions that we might have in order to prevent corruption in those areas related to public procurement. We're very happy to have synergies and international cooperation to fight corruption. The government of Mexico has been working together with UNOPS. And I actually want to take advantage of this time to acknowledge UNOPS work because they have truly helped us to have a fair public management. They have helped us to manage Mexicans' money. So they have also helped us to have transparency and better prices. So this has been very profitable for us. And as I said, this has obviously, as a consequence, generated very good impact when allocating budget and money. So they have helped us, as I said, to increase transparency, and that's very good. Let me finish by saying that today It is a priority to strengthen our institutions, these partnerships, these synergies, and of course, these cooperation bridges in order to avoid private interests, even if they are fair. We don't want private interests to come before the public interest because public interest is what we should all have in mind when acting as a government. So I'm very, very happy to be here in this exchange forum. I invite you to continue exploring through all these partnerships and through all these synergies. Let's build even better information systems. Let's have better formulas to share and to generate, as I said, better partnerships. And that's the way we will be able to stop abuse, stop corruption, and everyone will be able to have access to information. And of course, let's not forget that we always need to do everything in a transparent way. We know that we cannot have a new world or a new reality without a new public ethic at a global level. We need to agree so to have a very coordinated response from all countries in order to stop corruption. The greatest honor a country can have is giving something to the world. So it's nice if we can give information about how we're fighting for human rights, fundamental rights, and of course, how we're fighting for humanity. That's our belief, and that's what we're fighting for in our Ministry of Public Administration and in Mexico. Thank you very much, everyone. I want to thank her for her presentation. Now we have here Marcelo Ebrard, Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Mexico. So welcome. Now I'm going to pass the floor to Mr. Gabriel Catopodis, who's going to talk about maximizing efficiency and improving livelihoods through public infrastructure in Argentina. Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ambassador. Good morning, everyone joining us today. I want to welcome and thank Grete and the UNOPS team, Secretary of Foreign Affairs. I greet you. I'm very happy to participate in this meeting. So here we will continue talking about how to have better public procurement in the entire region. Argentina has been following a public procurement agenda for years, and this has become even more important during this economic and sanitary crisis, which is the most important crisis that we have faced as a world and as a region. We have had to redefine our priorities and we have had to make decisions during a very complicated context. We follow two important challenges we need to face. First, we need to close the infrastructure gaps that we have in our country. We need to work every day in order to improve the life quality of every person. We need to see how to make sure that public works are done in a transparent way. And we also need to see how can we have a fair public management. We must have a country, a nation, and a society that's fair and equal for everyone. But the second challenge related to this first objective is advancing with an institutional strengthening process. We aim to transform all procedures in order to make sure that we have higher efficiency and higher efficacy when developing actions. These are two very important objectives, and these are the two main tasks that we have been focusing on since day one and mainly during this pandemic. We aim to close gaps and to ensure that we have a better state for everyone. Having a state is not enough. We need to have a better state. And we also need to have an active civil society. We are convinced that these objectives that we are fostering and objectives that I'm sure we all share will be developed and will be achieved if we have a strong state, a state that's always there, if we have good public policies. But at the same time, we need to be able to generate a better interaction with an active and participative civil society, a civil society with tools in order to have social control. We know that that's the challenge, and we are convinced that the market it's not the one to allocate resources. The market is not the one who can build this social order within the region. No, a strong state, a strong country, the private sector and the civil society should all work together in order to achieve that. We have worked with different international organizations, the Inter-American Development Bank, and of course, we have also worked with the UN and UNOPS for everything we've done. And I want to share with you a brief presentation. I will try to be as clear as possible with all these concepts. So, there is a high demand for transparency. There is a high demand, and that's good news when talking about the transparency that we need and what society needs from us. We need to have transparency in terms of public roles. A second concept has to do with transparency as a fuel to understand the social interaction between the government, politics, and citizens. With no doubt, that fuel is key, that trust is key if we want to ensure that we are fulfilling all objectives. And a third pillar is advancing in order to close those gaps. We need to make sure that we are giving our citizens the life quality they want. We need to be able to manage public resources in a more efficient way. This way needs to allow us to help our people. That's urgent. And that urgency exists because this is an unequal region. And now, with this pandemic, everything has become worse. So, here we have the route map. This is the route map with four key elements. We are aiming to have a federal observatory of public works. We aim to have an interaction space, something to build and have a common synergy. So we aim to work with civil society and specialized institutions because we aim to control, we aim to have a follow-up of all processes that the Ministry of Public Works is doing in Argentina. Then we aim to have an investment map. We aim to understand the information availability we have. We aim all public works to be part of one single portal, one single page. And we want all citizens to be able to follow up on every public procurement. We want citizens to see what's going on in every public work. A third element here is maps. Argentina has been using an international practice It is a practice fostered by different international organizations. This is evaluating all procurement systems. We have implemented this technology and we have been trying to be very strict when controlling, following up, and evaluating all public procurements. And lastly, a monitoring and evaluation program. We aim to have a baseline. We want to have objective indicators. We want to know where to invest, what infrastructure to have. So every decision, every infrastructure problem that we are working on, every work being hired, every work being done must be based on objective indicators. We need to be able to have and make better decisions. So these are four important pillars. These are the pillars that we're working on: the observatory, the investments maps, and the monitoring and evaluation program. Mapa Inversiones, which is the investment maps, has been done together with the American Development Bank. So maps has been done together with the World Bank, IDB, among many others. These organizations are key for what we're doing. So here we're explaining some data. This is related to different sessions and different things that we have done in the observatory. Here we can see also the amount of consultations that we have had in the investments maps, Mapa Inversiones, which is a public platform. It's an online platform. So all citizens can be online and they can follow up on more than 1,460 works and 940 public infrastructure projects. This has become very important for the history of public procurement in Argentina. As I was saying, now we're using maps, which helps us to evaluate. Well, before that, this is a map related to the investments map. So I was saying maps. Maps is a methodology used by Argentina. Argentina is evaluating, interviewing, and reviewing all public procurement processes. The monitoring and evaluation program is based on different SDGs and other indicators. And we're also trying to incorporate different technology. When we got to the ministry, we had 8 different management systems, 8 different ways of doing things, and they were not integrated. That is, they were very different. It was very complicated for us to get indicators, to get information. So we now have one single management program. With that, we can have better control and we can have a baseline to be used in all programs. And this obviously allows us to have a better, fair public management, which is becoming more and more effective. Let me say that throughout the process, we have had a very critical collaboration. In addition to the Development Bank and the World Bank and many other international organizations who have been helping us, well, in the middle of the pandemic, we had a need that probably many other countries had, and this was creating hospitals, sanitary infrastructure. We had to respond in an efficient and transparent way. We had to buy and build infrastructure in order to fight this pandemic. What we did was calling a very experienced organization, an organization that truly knows about public procurement. That's UNOPS. We were able to do direct works. The law, because of this emergency, allowed us to get sanitary infrastructure, to build hospitals directly. But we decided to use transparent processes and clear processes. We decided to have a better public procurement. So we asked UNOPS to help us. They truly supported us for this development. Because of that, in record time, we were able to build 12 modular hospitals, 31 sanitary units in different cities of the country, and we build border centers in the borders of our country. So that infrastructure is almost ready. We're still working on some hospitals and we will continue doing that this year, but we were able to develop this infrastructure in very short times, in a very transparent way, and at very small cost. So we were used to have different public procurement processes, but nowadays we were able to build our hospitals, which have been absolutely useful. We also built hospitals in 31 jails, and we were also able to build sanitary units in different areas of the nation. Everything with great equipment, everything with materials, devices, and everything was done in a very efficient and quick way. So I want to take advantage of this time to thank the UN and UNOPS for their cooperation, for having allowed us to progress and advance very quick in this public procurement process. Because of your help, Argentina was able to face the first pandemic wave with great results, more than 3,000 beds and more than 1,500 beds that are being built right now. So right now, our country is going through the second wave, as we call it, but I'm sure that we will do great. So I'm sure that this is a very long way to go. It's a very long process. It is a journey that requires political decisions and a strategic vision. It requires us to be sure of what we want to achieve. So we also need to have a long-term vision. This vision will allow us to go further. We need to make sure that the state, that the public management is doing things in the proper way. We need to keep building equal societies. That is our idea. That's what we want to do. And we're convinced. We know we need to continue learning about good practices in the region. We need to have strategic alliances and partnerships with different organizations and with different multilateral institutions. For us, that has been key, mainly during these pandemic times. And we're also convinced that we still need to do many things. Before us, we need to build an ethics code for public procurement. We have been working on it, and we are also trying to include that gender perspective in everything we do. So we're convinced that we need to continue promoting citizens' participation. They need to understand and control everything the state does. So we know that if we continue like this, we will be able to have a more participatory and egalitarian society. Thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Katopodis for his presentation. And now I'm going to pass the floor to Grete Faremo so that she can talk about corruption prevention, how to have an effective, efficient, and transparent public procurement.
Thank you so much. And I am really honored to join this high-level panel of speakers. Excellency, Secretary of Public Administration, and Marcelo, Secretary of Foreign Affairs from Mexico. I still have fond memories of my visit to Mexico, and also Minister of Public Works from Argentina, where I equally remember my visit. It was really great. We are proud partners of both governments and we will do our best to continue our support. And it is indeed a pleasure to join you today in this timely and important conversation on preventing corruption through improved public procurement. This is a topic that is more urgent than ever as countries around the world strive to cope with and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, needing to do more with less. We are gathered here because we know the sheer impact and scale of public procurement, accounting for 15 to 30% of GDP in most countries. This means that better public spending offers an effective way of moving towards a more sustainable, peaceful, and resilient world. Public procurement is a key policy tool and arguably the most visible beacon of the quality of governance. Improved public spending offers a unique opportunity for countries to recover from the socio-economic impact of the pandemic, accelerate the shift to low-carbon economies, and progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet corruption poses, as we already heard today, a serious threat to all this potential. The World Bank has estimated that every year $1 trillion is paid in bribes, and equally $2.6 trillion is stolen through corruption. Together, this sum represents 5% of annual global GDP. In developing countries, it is estimated that funds lost to corruption are 10 times the amount of the overall official development assistance. If we put that into perspective, the annual global infrastructure financing gap, the cost of annual climate adaptation, and the annual cost to address world hunger could be addressed with less. Addressing corruption could finance some of the greatest challenges facing humanity. The extent of the damage done by corruption goes far beyond government finances. It actively impedes the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It discourages investment and hampers economic growth. It worsens inequality and adds to poverty. It erodes trust, as has already been alluded to, in governments, potentially creating instability. Corruption can seep into systems for so many reasons, from inadequate frameworks and weak institutions to poor planning and insufficient controls, and lack of transparency, inadequate monitoring systems, and low participation of civil society, to name a few. Corruption and a lack of good governance are strongly linked. Lack of good governance provides more opportunities for corruption to thrive, and in turn, corruption prevents good governance principles and structures from being put in place or enforced. At UNOPS, we believe there is a huge, unrealized potential in using public procurement as a transformational tool in a more targeted and strategic way. More sustainable and resilient procurement models can strengthen supply chains and protect development gains. Greater transparency in procurement can fight corruption to make more effective use of limited resources for development. Diversifying supply chains can give businesses owned by women, young people, people with disabilities, and ethnic minorities a chance to prosper. Greater effectiveness in public spending can help to address social inequalities, increase resilience to shocks such as from a changing climate or pandemics, or lay foundations for a cleaner, and more sustainable world. As such, we are committed to supporting national and local institutions in their fight against corruption. Improving public procurement is a key vehicle for us in this work. And we do this by working with our partners to enhance transparency, accountability, and integrity. Promote fair competition in public procurement, supporting social accountability and civic engagement, and promoting integrity and ethics in the public and private sector. We work with governments on fair public management to prevent corruption, promote sustainable use of available resources, and ensure equitable services. We help build capacity and solid institutions. And through our support for improved public procurement, we support governments improve their quality of governance, hence building and sustaining also peaceful societies. And allow me to give you some examples of this work. UNOPS is all about implementation, and I'll go to our partnership with the Mexican government first. We have embarked on a unique journey together to bring more efficiency, transparency, and effectiveness to the procurement of medicines. This is a landmark $6 billion agreement for a procurement of medicine and medical supplies for the period from 2021 to 2024. Its sheer volume speaks to the determination of both sides to secure best value and improve transparency while offering the best to the communities that both the government and we serve. To strengthen the analysis of medicine prices, UNOPS promoted the Regional Observatory for Medicine Prices, which facilitates access to reliable data on medicine procurement prices. In 10 months of implementation, we have achieved impressive results together. An estimated savings of 24%, amounting to over $580 million. This agreement will support Mexico's national development priorities, guaranteeing access to healthcare for the majority of the population by 2024. Undoubtedly, there will be challenges in the years to come in our joint effort to diversify the market by increasing the number of small and medium-sized suppliers and the journey to increase the capacity of public institutions. Let me now move to our partnership with the Government of Argentina. We supported the government in a $320 million project to procure equipment and services to expand internet connectivity in public schools across the country. So I refer to a different project than what was presented by Gabrielle before. But here, the procurement process was conducted in a fair and transparent manner and in record time, and again, resulting in significant savings of $92 million. It's 24% for the state, and it actually led to 9 million students being provided with internet access in public schools across the country. So let me again go back to the challenges we have had as a part of this work and how we have addressed these. And again, let me give you an example now from Guatemala, where since 2016, UNOPS has been supporting the Guatemalan Social Security Institute to improve transparency in public procurement by strengthening its institutional procurement capacities. This support with procurement of medicines generated savings of about $270 million and improved supply levels by 90% in 122 hospitals nationwide. An estimated 3.2 million Guatemalans are benefiting from improved healthcare as a result, but we did face significant challenges, such as legal claims and protests against the reforms. Restoring trust and securing participation was a challenge. Many suppliers were not bidding because they assumed that these were always awarded to the same vendors. To increase competition, the tender process helped establish new criteria for prices and quality, as well as more favorable supply conditions. Just in the first tender, UNOPS managed to get 62 bidders, compared to 11 bidders in a previous tender process conducted by the Institute. I could, of course, elaborate more, but in conclusion, as countries work hard to respond to and recover from the pandemic, public procurement is a key tool to help build back better and move towards a more sustainable, peaceful, and resilient world. And by working together to enhance transparency and prevent corruption in public procurement while promoting sustainable use of available resources, we will together build a better future for all. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, UNOPS Executive Director and UN Undersecretary General, for her words. In order to close this panel, we're going to invite Mr. Marcelo Ebrard, Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Mexico. He will close this meeting talking about how to fight corruption through partnerships and synergies. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I greet Grete Faremo. We are truly thankful because of your support, everything you've done for Mexico. You have helped us to fight corruption, and you have also helped us to use public resources the best way possible. She has been a great partner from the beginning of the administration. She came to Mexico in 2019 to sign an agreement between UNOPS and the government of Mexico. UNOPS is participating in many strategic activities for Mexico. She spoke already about public health material and devices. That is the main priority that the government of Mr. Obrador. I also greet Erendira Sandoval. Irma Erendira, thank you very much for your participation and your support. I greet Gabriel Catopodis from Argentina. I greet Buenos Aires from the bottom of my heart. I really liked what you said, and I congratulate you for what you've done. So after these very important presentations, we wonder why a country such as Mexico or Argentina, which are one of the main economies of the world, that have very sophisticated legal systems, sophisticated surveillance systems, laws, technical frameworks, countries that participate in many international organizations and institutions, why have we decided to ask UNOPS to participate with us? Why have we asked UNOPS to participate in processes as important as the ones mentioned? Why? Well, the main reason that Mexico is doing it is because even though since 2000 we have had different political parties, according to the democratic regulations, and even though we have many institutions in order to ensure transparency, such as the country's auditing body or such as the institute created to ensure transparency and access to information. I mean, why even though we have that, we still want UNOPS help. For Mexico society, and actually this explains why in 2018 Mr. Obrador won, citizens have always wanted to fight corruption. That is a main and goal, it's a priority. So when Mr. Obrador is asked, what's the main objective of your government? He always answers, finishing corruption, fighting corruption. We think that the main risk before democracy is corruption because it destroys trust in institutions and in political representatives. The lack of trust is created because of corruption. So why did we ask UNOPS to help us? Mr. Obrador reached the following conclusion. We have different institutions, yes, but we have not had the participation of institutions such as UNOPS, international organizations. UNOPS and its creation was a great idea from the beginning. So we said, why don't we invite UNOPS to participate in one of the most relevant markets? We want to have a good health service. We want to ensure that everyone has access to medicines. So this is one of the main objectives of every democratic and progressive government of the world. And that's why this is a very important objective for the president. He said, why don't we invite UNOPS? That way we will make sure that we're following international regulations, very strict norms and regulations. But also let's do it to destroy the monopoly that we have in Mexico. We don't want one single stakeholder to control everything happening. Let me give you an example. Every oncological medicine in Mexico was supplied by one single company. That company participated in every bid and it won. And yeah, that's a monopoly. 10 supplying companies controlled more than 70% of all procurements in Mexico. We're talking about the 15th economy of the world. So just think about the amount of resources that we're talking about. So the president said, let's invite UNOPS for UNOPS to be our partner. We want them to be our strategic partners because we need to fight these monopolies and we need to create completely different conditions. We need to make sure that there are international bids and we want to make sure that we have the participation of many companies from all around the world. We had many locks. And Grete knows this because we have been working together with her team. And I mean, the situation is very complex. I think we need to write a book about the experience that we had in Mexico. For example, in Mexico, we could get medicines from other areas of the world, but the processes were complex and long. So it's not only having willingness, but we have had to work a lot. Anyway, that's what we decided. And in order to highlight why UNOPS has been so important, I mean, without their support and without their participation, we have actually had their support for 2 years. So without them, I'm sure that we wouldn't be standing where we're at. This does not mean that the process is over, no, but it means that we are moving towards our final goal, which is having the best public procurement with the resources we have. And we also aim to find monopoly practices, which are usually related to corruption. And if they're not, they are they allow corruption to happen. If we only have 10 companies doing everything, then just imagine the incentives that we have for corrupt practices to happen or for illegal practices to happen. So UNOPS has been a strategic partner for Mexico. UNOPS has allowed Mexico to improve its health system. Now we are having the best possible prices, the best investment, and we have been trying to fight against all interests that were against what we want. As I said, creating institutions was not enough. We had to have a government with this priority, but we also need to have a good implementation. And our implementation decision was working together with UNOPS. UNOPS is participating in many other projects related to infrastructure, such in the case of Argentina. In Mexico City, they're helping us. And actually, they truly supported our ministry. Now we are having electronic passports. So I just want to say I truly celebrate UNOPS partnership. This has been a great experience. So, Grete, I think you and your entire team should feel proud because let me tell you that you are truly fulfilling the objectives that UNOPS have. I mean, it was created as a great idea and you are doing everything to fulfill those objectives. And if you still have doubts of something we can do together, let me give you an example. Today, we aim to strengthen health systems all around the world. So UNOPS is doing not only efficient things, but key things for health systems, such as our system to become better. They're helping us to address the entire population the best way possible. And when we talk about human lives, then there's nothing else to say. Helping people and saving lives is the best we can do. So thank you very much, Grete, for your effort, for your work, and for your commitment. And thank you, everyone. We thank Mr. Marcelo Ebrard, Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Mexico, for his presentation. And with this last comment, we close today's event. Before we leave, let me thank everyone for your participation. Thank you very much for having participated in this side event, advancing the prevention of corruption through partnerships and synergies in public procurement. Have a great day. Thank you very much.